Hello, my name is Mr. Marco Pedroza, and I get the opportunity to serve Scott Middle School as their principal. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to Scott Middle School's 24th Annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration. To get us started, our 7th grade band will be playing the National Anthem.
Hello, we are Anna Olberding,
Grace Hansen,
Abby Cooper,
8th grade members of TIE Club. TIE Club is the multicultural and equity club here at school.
TIE stands for Teens Influencing Equity. Each year, TIE Club has the honor of sponsoring the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. We now have Maya Stevenson to speak about the importance of this ceremony.
We are here today to recognize and give honor to a great civil rights leader, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and to honor someone locally who has followed in the footsteps of Dr. King. Scott Middle School is now in its 24th year of recognizing local community leaders into the Martin Luther King Jr. Wall of Honor that is located near the office. Each day as students, we pass by the wall that displays photos of men and women who have followed the example set by Dr. King. We are fortunate to reflect on men and women who have made a difference in our community. Nominations for the Wall of Honor were submitted by Scott's staff, parents, students, and honorees. Student representatives from the different grade levels, along with staff, administration, and parent, met and reviewed the nominations. And making a final choice for the Wall of Honor is not an easy job. There are many people in the Lincoln community that give a lot of their time and personal best to others. We would like to thank the committee for helping make this decision. As nominations are reviewed, the following qualifications are used as guidelines in making a selection. Nominees have been a member of the Lincoln community, volunteered their time, developed programs or projects, or served as a positive role model in the community, have given positive contributions to humanity in regarding multicultural activities, and people of all race and ethnic groups are eligible. The 2021 honorees are Ms. Cathie Petsch and Ms. Leola Johnson-Kappes. As the program continues, you will learn more about our award recipients.
Thank you, Maya. Next, we have Elise to introduce Mrs. Suter's 6th graders who are here to share their poetry.
In honor of Dr. King and this celebration to honor our recipients, Mrs. Suter's students have written poems to share.
Hi, my name is Emily Baugh, and my poem is called Dreaming. I have a dream, he thinks as a child, passing a white-only sign on the store window. I have a dream, he thinks as he sits in a church pew, listening to his father preach. I have a dream, he thinks, dreaming he'll have big words someday too, just like his dad. I have a dream, he thinks, studying Gandhi, learning of a new way of the world, one full of peace. I have a dream, he thinks, believing and working towards a life of love and not hate. I have a dream, he thinks, peacefully protesting black people's rights, fighting for their freedom. I have a dream, he thinks, on the cold, hard ground of a jail cell, just because he stood up for himself. I have a dream, he thinks in hope, even as the world gets more unjust and violent all around him. I have a dream, he thinks, linking hands with those he loves, boycotting buses to gain equal rights. I have a dream, he thinks, getting beaten, abused, yet still hopeful for the world. I have a dream, he preaches, finally getting his big words that will forever go down in history. I have a dream. His voice echoes through the heads of all that were listening, both black and white. I have a dream. His words spread, causing a spark in those who hear him, one of change and equality. I have a dream, he tells the world one last time on a balcony, a bullet about to pierce his skin. I have a dream, he prays to God, asking him to keep the dream alive for him once he's gone. I have a dream. I read those words today, wishing he could see the impact his dream had on us all. I have a dream, I think, inspired by the difference Martin Luther King made for our country, our world. I think one day I can make a difference too. All I have to do is dream.
I have a dream, he had announced on this day. Now all boys and girls can be looked at the same way. Everyone can be great. We, the people, will make a change and get rid of rudeness and hate. Free at last, free at last. The crowd roared and cheered. Equality was the answer to arrest being feared. Love is the key to the problems of the world. America is a better place when people are equal, all at the same pace. Let freedom ring. A burst of positivity had came into this land of the free. People are always created equal, just like you or me.
My name is Lillian Baker, and my poem is called A Stand for Rights. Long we have waited to gain our freedom, but something is not right, something is uneven. Though we are free, we have less rights, so to gain our justice, we will peacefully fight. We are seared in the flames of withering injustice, but we will extinguish this fire. We will no longer endure it. We will fight for our rights. We will fight with love, because hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. We will lay the crooked places straight. We will inspire them with our words. We will inspire them with our courage. We are not afraid to take a stand for justice, for we have lived 381 days without buses. Through love, hate, death, and strife, we will stand. We will stand for our rights.
My name is Palumi Bankalai, and my poem is called Stand Up. On January 15th, 1929, a boy was born. A boy who'd make a nation reborn. MLK believed people were more than the color of their skin. What mattered was what was within. He wanted people to know they had hearts and that they shouldn't be living life apart. He dreamed of a world with no violence or hate, a world where they'd be truly free and started to create. But peaceful protests created backlash, and people of all kinds started to clash. The fight for freedom took longer than expected. People of color wanted to be respected. With every step they faced a roadblock, but this didn't make them stop. People fought for justice till their dying days. They wanted kids to know love instead of hate and taught them to follow these peaceful ways. Now we look back and see that we made more of a change than we thought there would be. If they fought, then so can we, to fully become the change they could only dream to see.
Thank you, students, for reciting your poems. Jada Frank will inform and introduce us to Mr. Miles, who is here to share his rendition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a civil rights trailblazer. He spoke out on the injustices, inequalities, and racism individuals face in America. He led a nonviolent movement which organized speeches, marches, and boycotts. Dr. King preached about equality and equity for all Americans. 32 years after Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, this nation decided to set aside January 15th, his birthday, as the day we as a nation would give him special recognition for his contribution to the betterment of America. On the 28th of August, 1963, Dr. King gave a powerful speech at the March on Washington in Washington, D.C., where he talked about his vision, his dream for his people, for America. Now we will watch Mr. Miles, our 2006 Wall of Honor honoree recipient, recite parts of Dr. King's famous speech, I Have a Dream.
I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 5 score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light, of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own country. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise to all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed their inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come here today to cash this check. A check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We've come here to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or take the tranquilizing drugs of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulation. Some of you come from fresh and narrow jail cells. Some of you come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the storms of police brutality. You have been veterans of creative suffering, continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, even in the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream today. I have a dream that my 4 little children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, right down there in Alabama, with his vicious racists, with his governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right down there in Alabama, little black boys and girls will be able to join hands with white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with this faith. We will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discards of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing the song with a new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims brought from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the hiking Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill, from every mountain. Let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet and from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last.
Thank you for that amazing speech, Mr. Miles. Next, we have Daniel and Everett to speak about the previous recipients of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Award.
Dr. King believed and we should rise up and we can continue to have faith and rise to be our best selves.
Before we meet this year's honorees, we would like to share with you a slideshow honoring our past recipients. First off is retired Colonel Paul Adams.
And Dr. Webster Robbins.
Leola Bullock.
Cantor Michael Weisser.
Dr. Martin Rameriz.
Amarita Mahapatra.
Lela Knox Shanks.
Thomas Christie.
Jesse Miles.
Pete Ferguson.
Jose Soto.
Betty Petsch.
Dr. Marilyn Johnson-Farr.
Reverend Coleman.
Gerald Henderson.
Scott Young.
John Harris.
Pete Allman.
Tom Barber.
TJ McDowell.
Zainab Albaj.
Lily Miles.
And last, Nathan Woods.
Thank you, Daniel and Everett, and all the past honorees. Anna and Elise will now present the accomplishments of our newest honorees.
This year's honorees for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Wall of Honor are the past co-directors of the Lincoln Community Learning Centers. Community Learning Centers provide a fun educational experience using neighborhood schools as a central hub and gathering place for students, families, and neighborhoods. The clubs that are offered through CLCs provide enrichment opportunities during non-school hours for young people. CLCs help to develop important skills in students, and they encourage community and parent engagement for the growth of the children who participate.
Prior to the year 2000, CLCs didn't exist in Lincoln. Because of our honorees' diverse experiences in the community, they were brought in on the ground floor to develop the programs that thrive throughout Lincoln to this day. Our honorees embody the qualities of Dr. King by their commitment to leadership, partnership, and relationship building. Their work, vision, and influence continue to impact a multitude of families and communities throughout Lincoln.
Our first honoree is Cathie Petsch. Cathie Petsch grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska and made many friends, and some of them she still has today. Mrs. Petsch went to school at Holmes Elementary, Leffler Middle School, Southeast High School, and UNL. When she was at Leffler, she participated in student council. She has a journalism degree, a political science minor, and has a master's degree in public administration from the University of Nebraska. Mrs. Petsch was seriously considering applying for law school, but a close friend advised her to run for the school board instead. Cathie did as her friend suggested. Mrs. Petsch was elected for the school board and also worked for the Journal-Star. Mrs. Petsch has been the president of many nonprofit and community organizations, including Family Service, the Lincoln Children's Zoo, the Junior League, and more. Of course, she was also one of the co-directors of the Community Learning Centers. Mrs. Petsch worked with the CLCs for 11 years, and of these, 10 were in Waverly. Mrs. Petsch also taught journalism at Northeast High School.
Our co-honoree is Leanne Johnson-Kappes. Mrs. Johnson-Kappes graduated from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln with a bachelor's degree in elementary education and early childhood education. She switched her major repeatedly and eventually chose where her passion was in education. She went on to receive her master's degree in marriage and family counseling from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Mrs. Johnson-Kappes brought a background in working with nonprofit organizations to her role with community learning centers. Before, she was the co-director of the Lincoln Community Learning Centers Initiative. Mrs. Johnson-Kappes was the associate executive director and the program coordinator for the Family Service Association and program director for Cedars Home for Children. She continues to use the skills, knowledge, and connections she developed when she was a CLC director in her current role as a consultant to the communities throughout the state of Nebraska on how they can develop and grow community learning centers.
At this time, we would like to welcome Mr. Pedroza to present the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Award to the next recipients.
At this time, we would like to honor Miss Cathie Petsch and Miss Leanne Johnson-Kappes as the 2021 Scott Middle School Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Award recipients. In addition to receiving a plaque, your name and photograph will be placed on the Wall of Honor, along with the 23 other community leaders that have been recognized for this award. We would like to thank you for your contributions and also give you an opportunity to share your words of wisdom with us.
Ms. Leanne Johnson-Kappes will be accepting the award on behalf of herself and Ms. Petsch.
Thank you. It is an honor to have been nominated and selected as the 2020 co-recipient for the Martin Luther King Jr. Wall of Honor at Scott Middle School. I want to thank the current and past educational leaders and student body of Scott Middle School for their continued commitment to the beliefs and values of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As I reflected on the work of the past honorees, individuals who include Leola Bullock, Marty Rameriz, Thomas Christie, Pete Ferguson, Beatty Brosh, Scott Young, and TJ McDowell, to name a few, I am humbled to be in company with such diverse, community-minded, caring, and thoughtful servant leaders, many who I have called friend and colleague over the years. I also want to acknowledge Cathie Petsch, my colleague and friend who mentored and supported me in my journey as an effective community builder during our years through the CLCs. To receive this honor for 2020 is really overwhelming. For me, and I suspect for all of you, 2020 was a very challenging year, to say the least. However, in spite of all that happened in 2020, I believe we as individuals, as a community, and as a nation have honored Martin Luther King Jr. and his hope, his belief, and his dream for our great country. You see, in 2020, I saw people rise up and meet the call for collective action. Whether it was schools and community partners coming together to make sure that children were fed, Their social emotional needs were met, and learning opportunities continued to be delivered remotely or in person with many COVID precautions in place. Whether it was organizations or individuals meeting the needs of families filled with fear of becoming homeless due to looming evictions, or the fear of what unemployment might mean for them and their children, and whether it was the worldwide protests that we witnessed in the name of racial justice for men and women of color. Rayshard Brooks, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. The record number of people voting in the 2020 presidential election during a raging pandemic. People showed up in 2020. You see, showing up and rising up suggests to me that there is still belief in community, there is still humility and interdependence, which provides me hope. Hope in the possibility of a more positive, a more equitable, a more inclusive, a more just, a changed future for all. I encourage community members, no matter what age, children, youth, young adults, senior citizens, to use your voice, show up, and rise up. Rise up when you see wrong in your schools, in your neighborhood, in your community. Rise up when you see people in need, hurting. Rise up and challenge systems that set rules, make policies, put into practice things that make absolutely no sense, that are not equitable. Rise up and be the change that creates communities of well-being where all members belong, contribute, and thrive. I want to just leave us with the words of the late Martin Luther King Jr. We are called to play the Good Samaritan on life's roadside, but that will be only an initial act. One day, the whole Jericho Road must be transformed so that men and women will not be beaten and robbed as they make the journey through life. True compassion is more than flipping a coin to a beggar. It understands that an edifice that produces beggars needs restructuring. We collectively can be a part of the restructuring. We show up, we rise up, we care, we are compassionate, we are kind, we are open. We are the voice that brings light to the future of equitable possibilities in 2021 and beyond. Thank you very much for this honor, and please be gentle with one another.
Thank you, Leanne, for that wonderful acceptance speech. And this one was a special one for me as I started my career in Lincoln Public Schools. I began teaching and was a CLC coordinator at Dawes Middle School, and Leanne was my boss at the time. So this one is a special award to give out. So great job. As our program comes to an end, I'd like to thank our honorees and Tie Club for working on this program. I'd also like to thank our 7th grade band for the music today. To all the Scott students who presented today and all the staff members who helped along the way, a big thank you to you as well, especially to our Lincoln Public Schools Communications Department who helped us with our presentation today. I'd also like to thank all of our parents and guardians for your continued support with all of our students through the years. Students, today I want you to celebrate the legacy of Dr. King, but I want you to do more than that. We are currently living in a global pandemic that will impact us for the rest of our lives. With so much going on around us, it is easy to lose sight of who we are as humans. So I want you to think about four things today. Number 1, reflect. Build empathy and awareness of yourself and others. Number 2, engage in a proactive conversation in what can be done to address past issues and the questions that come with them. Ask yourself, where do I go from there? Words matter. Words motivate or deflate thoughts, hopes, dreams, and actions. Words have the power to excite, inspire, elate, sadden, frighten, anger, or give hope. Remember, we are all in this together, and words matter. Number 3, help others. Be sure to open lines of communication. Be supportive. Be sure to model behavior that conveys caring, concern, and appropriate behavior. And number 4, this is not one and done. This does not end today. Your character is something that follows you for the rest of your life. There is no playbook for living in a global pandemic, but that does not mean we cannot appreciate the good in people. We should all do our best to make each other feel safe and comfortable at school and beyond. Always be kind and courteous to those around you. As Harold Kushner said, when you are kind to others, it not only changes you, it changes the world. Thank you.